Those of you who followed us for a while know that we are now trying to every week have a startup story that features one of the innovators in our ecosystem. And we are inviting our partner organizations like SeaAhead, who will be presenting this startup story, to share and to really engage with us and engage with our community. So with that said, I will pass the baton over to Alyssa Peterson from SeaAhead. We'll be sharing our startup story. She'll be interviewing Eagle from VinciVR.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Toonie, for having us. I'm delighted to be here and to see many faces we know. Just a quick background for those of you who don't know SeaAhead. We are a startup, I'd say incubator and ecosystem network focused on the ocean space. So our mission is venture innovation for the ocean, and that covers both the offshore renewable energy space, but it also covers maritime, it covers aquaculture, fisheries, and coastal resilience and plastics, et cetera. So things that are either good for the ocean or good for sustainable ocean industry. And so today we'll be talking with Eagle Wu, CEO of VinciVR, who's one of the companies in our incubator cohort, which is called Blue Swell. And that's a collaboration we have with the New England Aquarium. And so I will hand it over to Eagle to introduce himself and his work.
Hey everyone, Eagle Wu here from VinciVR. I founded the company and currently serve as the CEO. So just a little background on what we do. We created a virtual reality training platform that enables teams to create, share, and train in immersive virtual reality. So, kind of the headsets that have recently been coming out. We actually started in the defense space. It's for most startups, I would recommend not making that your beachhead market, but here we are. And we started out making a lot of kind of maintenance training for the Air Force. That eventually started moving and pivoting towards offshore wind. So we currently have a project between us, Mass Clean Energy Center, and Siemens Gamesa. And what we're doing is we're taking a lot of kind of the nacelles and turbines and putting them into VR so that offshore wind technicians and trainees can actually get, early exposure to what it would be like to be working in a nacelle, hopefully before they step onto a nacelle, and maybe find out that they don't like being 30 stories up in the air and working there for several hours. So that's kind of just a quick rundown of what we're doing. I guess, Alyssa, if you have any questions, go for it.
Yes, absolutely. Got lots of questions. So could you give us a little grounding on how you started? What made you decide to found Vinci?
Yeah, so I originally got the VR headset because I wanted to make video games. That was kind of where we got started. I started building out just this janky kind of app that, if you ever seen the movie Iron Man, where Tony Stark pulls apart his Iron Man suit, I basically wanted to make that. So I made that in my dorm room, and someone from my college who worked at the Army Research Lab saw that, and he was like, hey, can you do this, but can you take out the Iron Man suit and put in like military equipment? And I said, oh, we'll give it a shot. And from there, working with people and seeing the how we can actually help people in terms of learning better and faster, and actually seeing the impact, that kind of drove us to continue going down this space and trying to help as many people as we can.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great story, and you're being very modest right now when you talk about your work with the military. So how, going from the work that you've been doing with the Army, how did you realize that offshore wind would be a good industry for you to enter?
Yeah, so what we came to realize is that there's actually, I know the Navy guys were just here, but a lot of people at Siemens came from the submarine division of the Navy. And what we quickly learned was that the reason why offshore wind likes to hire a lot of people out of the military is because the environments are almost the same, in the sense that a submarine is not too different from a nacelle. It's a very cramped, closed corner. There are a lot of things in there that can kill you instantly. It's a dangerous environment, and the training has to be 130% ready, good to go. Everyone has to be on top of their game when they're working in a cell because of just how dangerous it is to be in there. And when we realized that, we realized, wow, this actually could be a very big space because the problem and the pain point is extremely painful for the offshore wind sector. So that's how we realized it was a good opportunity, and so far it's been proven to be correct.
Right. So what do you see as being the potential biggest impact that your organization could make if, as you scale within offshore wind?
Yeah, we're talking about high level impact.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't realize, but the U.S. is talking a lot about having all these offshore wind turbines, right? But we have a really big kind of oversight in the sense that we're talking about these projects, but we don't actually have anyone to install them. The workforce is non-existent, which is pretty rough. So we either have to fly in like thousands of people from Europe to come and take American jobs, essentially is what it is. Or we build the workforce here, and we have to do it in like 2 years, which is not easy. So there's a lot. It's expensive. Our big high level impact is we want to have a nacelle, like a literal nacelle, in every college classroom in the U.S. so that anyone can learn and become a wind turbine technician without having to either fly to facilities or have to build a multi-million-dollar nacelle.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's great. And I can also see, sort of building on that, the ability to train people in underserved locations and to reach new, I would say new and underserved communities with opportunities that are for high-paying jobs through that, because it requires less flight.
Yeah, so that's actually a really cool thing with part of our Mass CEC contract is, it used to be that if you want to become a wind turbine technician, you have to fly to a Siemens facility, and their facility is currently in Orlando. And a lot of people have different opinions about Orlando, but generally speaking, Orlando is a relatively better off city in the U.S. What we're essentially doing is we're reversing the flow. So now Siemens can send people to maybe New Bedford, or perhaps and name any city in Massachusetts that's struggling, and now they can have a Siemens presence, and they can do so because they don't need to bring all this equipment. They don't, there's no other capital cost that has to come with doing this. So that's kind of the idea. Yeah.
And being a startup, right, in the military space, and then now in the offshore wind space, that can't be particularly easy. So I'm wondering how you've felt, entering this industry, which is, I would say quite conservative in general with a new technology.
Well, it hasn't been easy. The hardest part is there's a lot of hard parts here. There's fierce competition between the OEMs, Siemens versus GE versus Vestas. So every single company is holding their IP close to their chest. And if we want to build a VR nacelle, we need access to IP, right? So there's that massive issue that, for example, we're trying to work through right now. There's other issues also related to things like just having to work with Siemens Global, right? The military, actually at times we find the military bureaucracy might be easier to navigate because, we're talking about the US, so it's just one country. With Siemens, because their global team is in Denmark, if we're building something, we have to also keep in mind things like GDPR, right? Facebook is currently, like, you can't buy an Oculus in Germany right now, which is a pretty big problem. So there's things like that we have to deal with, international kind of standards that we don't have to really think as much about with the military. So
that's great. That's great. Yeah, it's hard. I'd say, and I wonder, as you're working on this, you know, you've got a lot of folks here in the audience, and I'm wondering, you know, how could people in this audience be helpful to you? How could they be helpful to startups in the offshore wind space in general?
Yeah, I think the big thing right now is having good connections and just understanding the space, right? Offshore wind is a heavy industry space, and like any other heavy industry space, it's really complicated, especially when you have big machines that require a lot of things like safety standards that have to be passed, right? A nacelle cannot go down. So any new innovation that goes in has to be tested. Like you need to understand the specs. You have to understand a lot of things before it can even touch the field. So, you know, what will be very helpful for us or any other startup really is kind of connections to the space, being able to talk with subject matter experts who might understand the space better and can give us better insights to develop the product and do so in a way that it becomes easier for us to actually put this in the field. I would say that's probably the big thing.
That's a big thing. Yeah, that's good. There's a bunch of people I can see here. I won't call you out by name right now, but we'll call you out by email later, who could be absolutely helpful to you on that front. I know we are getting low on time, and Amy's looking at me. So any last parting words for us, Eagle, as you head off onto your next thing?
Yeah, I can. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to connect with me if you want to talk, or even put on a VR headset too. That'd be cool. Yeah. But other than that, no, it's an exciting industry. I think it's hopefully if we can pull off what we're trying to pull off, we can really expedite the process, and at least hopefully there'll be less, you know, casualties and stuff in the nacelles. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work. And I will just say that the Blue Swell cohort, so our first cohort of 6 companies in that program, is graduating on March 31st. So if you'd like to see Eagle and his cohort of companies pitch, that will be on March 31st, and you can either LinkedIn me, I'll put it in the chat, or email me, or sign up on SeaAhead's website for our mailing list, which would get you access to the invitation. Thank you.